Welcome to Growth in Practice, the podcast where we sit down with founders, business leaders, and innovators to have honest conversations about what it really takes to build and grow successful businesses. My goal is simple: to uncover the lessons learned, the mistakes made, and the practical insights that we can share to give a little bit more insight and help us all grow a little smarter. I'm your host, Margaret Cascio, and today I'm joined by Dan Pickett, the founder of LaunchWare, fractional CTO, entrepreneur, technology advisor, and I'm sure there's tons more. But for years, Dan has helped founders and leadership teams turn ideas into successful software products while avoiding some of the costly mistakes that can derail growth. When Dan and I first spoke, one comment immediately caught my attention. He said that one of the most important jobs of the CTO is saying no. Now, that might sound counterintuitive. It sounds counterintuitive to me, but especially in this world of AI where it's making it easier than ever to build software. But as we talked, it became clear that the hardest part of building great products isn't writing code. It's having the discipline to stay focused on the right problems, make smart decisions, and resist the temptation to build everything. So that's exactly where we're going to start today. Dan, welcome to Growth Practice. I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
During our first conversation, you said something that really stood out to me. You said that one of the most important jobs of the CTO is saying no, as I had mentioned. And that's probably not what most people expect to hear. So why is saying no such an important part of building successful products and companies?
Well, I think what any executive really needs to do in our modern world here, in our ever-changing world, is to stay focused. And that means both strategically and from a product standpoint. Particularly in my discipline of engineering, that usually means not spending a lot of time and money working on the wrong features. So when I say no, it's really more about asking the question, are you focused on the right things? Are you moving the needle in a way that's going to resonate with your constituency, whoever's using the software?
Great. Well, that clarification really helps. You know, that saying no is just kind of, you're like, I need more on that. So that really helped. You talk with a lot of founders and they come in with a solution already in mind. I know I do too. So they've got this problem, like, this is how we're going to solve it. Can you help us? Why do you think that happens and what should they be doing differently?
Well, I think a lot of founders come to me with a solution, hunting for a problem. My job as a CTO is to first make sure that we've clearly articulated the problem that we're trying to solve, right? I learned from someone quite a while ago. Her name was Amy Hoy, an entrepreneur in my space. And I love her analogy of every business creates a service or product that is a money multiplier or a pain killer. And when you're in the problem space, I'm always looking for something that's going to multiply money for clients, right? Meaning they're going to increase profit, they're going to increase revenue, they're going to do something financially that moves the needle, or they're going to solve a significant pain. And that can be in any of the spheres of health, wealth, happiness, right? So I'm always looking for those money multipliers or those painkillers and really, really focusing on what is the actual pain or what is going to maximize the financial potential for the client or the stakeholder or whoever we're serving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing you also mentioned, and this kind of keys off what you just said, was the importance of protecting capital and staying disciplined. Taking that first step is really important, and it lays the foundation, right? So how do you help founders decide what belongs in version 1 and what can wait until later?
So I'm a big science nerd. I love the scientific method, and I think we've seen so much progress in the last, 200 to 300 years as a result of scientific experimentation. So I'm a big believer in having a market hypothesis and then building out an evaluation criteria for how we're going to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. So part of the work that we do with early stage companies is once we've really focused down on what the pain is or where the financial upside is, we then take that and say, okay, well, how are we going to verify that we've solved the problem? And the beauty of software is you can measure so much. You can measure engagement rates. You can measure things like net new subscribers and monthly recurring revenue, right? All of this stuff, we just have a wealth or even an embarrassment of riches as it pertains to data. So how can we use data to disprove or prove our hypothesis? Starts with that problem, starts with a hypothesis on how we're going to solve it. And then the software needs to do as minimal amount of work to either prove or disprove that hypothesis. And I think oftentimes founders can get carried away with deviating from that path of we're laser focused on this hypothesis and how we're going to invalidate or validate it. It's easy to add a lot of bells and whistles to software that especially a marketing or sales oriented founder will imagine to be a significant differentiator for themselves in the competitive landscape. But really what software needs to do is it needs to solve their customers' problems first and foremost. So that's really the kind of focusing discipline that's required in early stage product development.
Yeah, good. So you've built this over years, and I love the framework that you've created, and you get people started off on the right foot. But what are some of the most common mistakes founders make before they ever start? Because I like to ask that question because people won't really see it in themselves, but then if they hear somebody say it, they're like, "Oh, that is me." So
Far and away, I believe the biggest challenge I see founders regularly bumping into is this: if you can build it, if we build it, they will come mentality. And I often push back on founders and say, actually, that's backwards. We really need to first build an audience and make sure that the problem that we've identified resonates with them. And then that creates a healthy test environment for us to validate or invalidate that hypothesis. So I often encourage founders to build an audience first, start talking about the problems that you're setting out to solve, actually getting on the phone or on a web conference like this to really understand the context of the person that they're trying to serve. I have a ton of interesting technology challenges that resonate with me, but an audience of one is not going to sustain a business, right? So what we need to do is we need to find a cohort of like-minded people that have the same problem so that we can first really hone in on the commonalities that exist within that cohort. I think a lot of founders have this mentality that first I need to build it, and then that's going to bring the audience to me. That's going to create that gravity. And I don't agree. I think you can get a lot of early adopters interested in solving the problem and coming alongside you to address the problem. And that's just way more productive because it's not just one person articulating how we're going to solve that problem. You've now got a group of people helping you to design the solution. And that's just so much more powerful.
yeah, exactly. And I think this kind of emergence of what we talked about, vibe coding, that kind of goes into that space of those founders like, okay, here's, they've been breathing their own air. They're like, oh, this is a great, great idea. And they haven't done what you just explained. And then they go off and create this thing. And of course, with AI, it's just going to go, oh yeah, it's great. It's great. It's great. Continue on, continue on. But, so most of us have experienced that, but can you explain a little bit about what vibe coding is what founders should understand about both the opportunity and the risks?
Yeah, great question. There's quite a bit of what we call AI psychosis going on in the marketplace right
Yeah.
now. So the emergence of large language models, things like ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, there's Google's Gemini, right? These are predictive models that are effectively guessing at what you want for an answer. And what has emerged are all these great software development tools to effectively generate code based on a prompt, based on narrative that you as the founder would write. And what we found is as these large language models became more powerful and capable, folks could do what we call vibe coding, which is basically not opening an editor, not actually messing with any of the code that the LLM is generating, and letting the coding assistant effectively drive the process. And that's really great if you've done those prerequisites of identifying the pain, establishing a hypothesis on how you're going to solve the problem, and now you're ready to build a proof of concept or a prototype, right? Vibe coding can work, and it does not require a significant technology background to make it work. So when you're proving out or validating a hypothesis, vibe coding can be quite powerful. The pitfall is the moment you start charging or accepting payments, the moment you start putting this into production to save on efficiencies internally within your organization, once you're hitting real users, you really do need the expertise of someone like myself, somebody with an engineering background, to make sure that you've eliminated a lot of significant risks when you deploy software. So particularly today, I think those risks mainly are privacy and making sure that the data that you're collecting from your users is safe and secure. In this day and age, people are becoming very protective of their data. The other big piece is scalability, right? It may work for 5 users. It may work for 50 users. Will it work for 5,000 users or 50,000 users, right?
Mhm.
And then the other big piece is just overall maintainability of the software. So I like to say that a software project is never finished. We constantly want to iterate, add new features, refine features, even simplify the software, right? And if it is not built on firm foundations, if we keep adding rooms to the house without making sure like the plumbing is right, the electricity is wired properly, everything can come crashing down, right? So I like vibe coding as an early stage tool to validate or invalidate a hypothesis, potentially help you raise some money, right? Or put something tangible in the hands of your users to gather more feedback. But once you start going beyond conceptual and into like real business mode, that's where vibe coding often falls short.
Yeah. And I think that's there's that passion to like push something out to because we're all trying to get customers, right? That's the end goal. We want to solve their problem, we want to solve it well, and we want to service them well and keep them engaged. And but getting those right customers is always a challenge. As technology comes in to help us, and something that you were talking about in our other conversation, you were talking about the conversations that you were having with the founders that you work with, even within your own business, getting the right customers is harder because it's noisy out there. There's not a lot of the human involved anymore, and people aren't having a lot more of these conversations that we're having. Why, from your perspective, for your company, why has distribution become such an important challenge, and especially for growing companies?
Well, it's actually very interesting. This is a recent phenomenon, actually. Uh, we have discovered that there are more bot users on the web than there
Mhm.
are human users of the web. And that was kind of the way it evolved, right? Where we have automations and a lot of technology available to us to harness the power of the web and being in this interconnected world. But what that results is sort of a situation of the snake eating its own tail, right? Where bots are now talking to bots, and it's creating a lot of chatter and a lot of noise. Um, LinkedIn just recently has started to publish perspective on how it's trying to eliminate content that was obviously generated by large language models, right? And so these tools have decreased the barrier to entry, allowing people to sound much more experienced and much more battle hardened than maybe they actually are. And as a result, there's a lot of people talking, um, maybe even punching above their weight a little bit. And so the noise to signal ratio is becoming quite lopsided.
Yeah.
So I think one of my challenges now in my third decade as an entrepreneur is how do I stand out amidst
Yeah.
all that noise and bring some clarity and some signal to the conversation so that people are actually hearing from folks that are experienced, battle hardened, and can provide unique perspective in the marketplace. And I think that every entrepreneur is having that challenge today.
Yeah. Yeah. I love I love the word battle hardened. I'll take that as a badge of honor. Because definitely there's some experience here. So but you're right. It's you learn the lessons, you get up, you do it again, you learn, you're better, you consume the new and validate it against what you know to be true, and then make it better. I think both of us have had lots of experience in that space, and I think that's important for people to know and understand that experience is important, and especially as we become more um, you know efficiency and effectively driven with technology, that human layer becomes, and that human intelligence. I just had a conversation with another person in technology about the human intelligence layer. And it's kind of like when horses came along, or let's take a typewriter, that's maybe more technology focused. People were writing and publishing on these big Gutenberg presses, and then all of a sudden, the typewriter came along and the copier, and it's like, oh, these jobs are going to go away. Well, yes, but now we can use these as a tool to even heighten what we do as a human better. So I think that's just what I've been hearing in this conversation, and I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%. So there's sort of an increment of vibe coding that I have now been refining in our internal processes within the agency. And it's called agentic software engineering. Agentic software engineering is you have an experienced engineer guiding the conversation, structuring the architecture as you build. And that agentic engineering is relegating the large language model to be a tool. And
mhm,
like you so articulately said, the typewriter was a tool, the personal computer was a tool, the internet is a tool. A large language model, in my engineering experience, is just a tool to do more work faster.
mhm.
You still require discipline and all those fundamentals that I've learned as a software engineer to build great software. A large language model can amplify that experience and that know how to do more with less, which for me as a technologist is extremely exciting.
Yeah. Well, before we wrap up, from your perspective, was there anything that we didn't cover that you wish we would have covered or wanted to share with the audience?
No, I think this was a great conversation about how to go to market.
Mhm.
It's all about finding an audience that has a problem, uh, developing a scientific hypothesis on how you're going to know whether you're actually solving that problem or not, and then building intentionally and in a disciplined manner. That's how we make great products.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's great. Is there a piece of advice you would want to share with our audience on how to scale a company in today's environment beyond what you've just shared with us?
Human conversations. Talk to your customers. Get on one-on-one conversations. It's so much cheaper to understand your problem before you start building. So the more conversations you have, the better data you'll have to make important strategic decisions, whether that's in your marketing or in your technology.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Well, thanks so much, Dan. Really brought some real good nuggets together for our team and underlined the message that we're always trying to bring, and that is don't forget about the human intelligence part of engaging with people that are important to you, whether they're your customers, your family, your friends. So I think that's really important. Thanks again, Dan. We appreciate you. And we'll have some links to Dan's company, LaunchWare, so you can get in touch with him directly and ask any questions of this real human being who's really smart because he's had this decade of experience and takes that intelligence and wraps it all up for his customers. So thanks again, Dan.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.